Pierce Fakunle.
If you hold on for a second, we want to share with you Marissa Stone, a great consultant and change agent. We'll be right back.
Every time I feel the ancestors moving in my heart, I make way. Every time I feel the ancestors moving in my heart, I make way. I make way with a story, I make way with a song. With the ancestors leading, I can't go wrong. I make way with a proverb, a parable too. Ancestors of Africa teach us what to do. Every time I feel the ancestors moving in my heart, I make way. Every time I feel the ancestors moving in my heart, I make way. Moving in my heart, I make way. Moving in my heart, I make way.
Welcome to the Talking Drum with Keepers of the Culture, CHERYL Hinton, and I'm Deborah Pierce. Today we have as our guest Marissa Stone from our segment, Etched in Stone.
Tell us something about yourself. What do you do and why do you look good?
Oh, sure, you're so gracious and so kind. Thank you. Well, what do I do? What are my interests?
Yes.
Well, actually, as you know, I am an artist. I'm a jewelry artist, and I love the visual arts, and I love the performance and movement arts. As you know, I study West African dance in and around Baltimore City. There are so many wonderful dance organizations here in Baltimore. And I'm a jewelry artist. I love jewelry art. I find it as a very therapeutic way of relaxing. Sometimes my work can be stressful. And professionally, again, I'm the principal of Ionic Concepts, but in addition, I work as a management consultant for Neighborhood Reinvestment Corporation. Neighborhood Reinvestment Corporation is a intermediary, a national intermediary for community development. And so for Neighborhood Reinvestment, I am a organizational development practitioner.
Well, I'm admiring that piece of jewelry around your neck, my sister. Please tell me more about that. Is that turquoise?
Yes, it is. It's actually yellow turquoise, and I think that, if I'm not mistaken, I have amber with it. And I just love, I love beads. It was something that I've learned to do actually just out of some challenges that I was having personally in my life, and I decided to channel the energy into doing something positive. And my mother actually helped me. Now, my mother was a seamstress when she was a younger woman, and she made clothes for people. And I never will forget walking down the streets, and people would say to her, you know, where did you get that, and can I buy that from her? But she taught me about fabrics, and she taught me about symmetry, and she taught me about quality workmanship. And although I never took up being a seamstress, personally I found it to be very challenging, I found that I really enjoyed bead making. And so my first bead project, if you will, was making hair charms for locks. And my mother and I went to a jewelry store in Philadelphia, and it was the first time I ever went to a bead store. And I was so overwhelmed by all the beads, and she helped me select a heart bead. And I came back home and I made it into like a little charm for the hair. And I was going to a shop to get my hair done, and many of you may know Dreads and Heads here in Baltimore, Malika Cooper.
Yes.
Malika, I used to go to her shop a lot, and she saw my hair charm, and she encouraged me to make some more for her and for her shop. And actually, that's how I got started. And from there, I took them to New York and Washington and Philadelphia, and I was really blessed. I actually, after about 3 months of just making these little charms, Essence Magazine contacted me.
I think I saw them in
Yes.
Essence Magazine.
And they told me that they were doing a shoot with Tyra Banks and wanted to use those hair charms in her hair. And so that was my first experience. And then from that I got a little piece in the style section of the Washington Post. And so I say this all to say that I am not a trained jewelry artist. I've never taken a jewelry class. However, I have found so much enjoyment in jewelry design and jewelry making, and actually have been quite blessed. I didn't know that it was a gift that I had. And so with gifts, I try to share those gifts. And so many people I give my hair charms to. And another, what I would call a jewelry niche that I have in terms of my jewelry product are waist beads.
Yes.
And so I learned about waist beads through the African dance community. Many women wear waist beads under their clothes. They're called jellies in African culture. And I saw them, and they were usually strung on just a stretchy string, and just kind of little plastic beads. And I decided, I said, let me try to make them with pearls and different semi-precious stones. And so many women here in the Baltimore community embraced my waist beads, and so I've been very blessed with that as well.
I'm one that embraces
I was
your
going to
waist
say,
beads.
don't you have waist beads on
I love waist beads. I mean, in fact, I love all of it, and I've always found my sister very difficult to shop for until she saw some of Marissa Stone's jewelry, and she's fallen in love with it. So if anybody wanted to purchase,
Right.
How do
Well,
you do that?
I think what they can do is that I have them in different shops and around the city in different places, but my jewelry business is called Body Adornments by Iona. And again, Iona being a concept of ownership, and so oftentimes I work with young women around the city, and I have them, do the beadwork for me. I design the jewelry, and they do the beadwork. And so my consulting business is www.ionaconcepts.com, and I also can be reached at 410-534-IONA, I-O-N-A. So if someone wants to call me and get in touch with me about consulting for nonprofits and or interested in jewelry and or jewelry making.
We're going to take a break right now, and when we come back, we're going to share with you what the talking drum is really all about. Folks, we want you to get a little taste of the talking drums.
This drum came from Africa, as did my dress. Now, I'd like you to help me with this song, and I'd like you to clap your hands whenever I hit the drum, but not until I hit the drum, okay? When John Henry was a little baby, sitting on his pappy's knee, he picked up a hammer and a little piece of steel and said, this hammer's gonna be the death of me, Lord, Lord. This hammer's gonna be the death of me. John Henry hammered on the mountain till his hammer was a striking fire. He hammered so hard that he broke his poor heart, and he died with his hammer in his hand, Lord, Lord. He died with his hammer in his hand. John Henry had a pretty woman, and she always dressed in red. She walked down the track, never looking back, and said, I'm going to where my man's laying dead, Lord, Lord. I'm going to where my man's laying dead. They took John Henry to the graveyard, and they buried him in the sand. Now every time a train goes by, it says, there lies a steel driving man, Lord, Lord. There lies a steel driving man. What's his name? John Henry!
Wow, that was really nice, wasn't
Yes,
it?
it was.
Deborah, remember when we were talking about what we were going to do with the show, and we said that we would call it the Talking Drum, because we wanted to share with the community all about arts and culture, especially here in Baltimore and beyond.
Yes, and we wanted to do that sharing throughout the year. We didn't want to be limited to the times when people seek culture and arts, like at Kwanzaa time or in February for Black History Month. But we want to let them know that things happen all through the year, and that there's information to be shared and things to be experienced.
Exactly. I mean, art means a whole lot of things to a whole lot of people, and we're not just talking about visual arts. We're talking about the dance community. We're talking about what's happening in the hip-hop culture, what's happening in the nightlife of Baltimore as well, and our old community of art during U.B. Blake's time, Cab Calloway. And we will also want to bring in more young people who are really interested in arts, because arts is one thing that should not and will never die.
That's true, because it gives you such an experience and such an opportunity to do other things. We want to not just explore the visual arts, but all kinds of art forms, and we want to address the aspects that you may not even see on stage, because there are folks working behind stage, getting things ready, and forms like music, church music, gospel music, which started with slaves writing spirituals on plantation out of their inner desire to express what was happening to them, as well as what was surrounding them. That's the basis of the spiritual. So we want to share those kind of things on this show.
And we also want to bring in people who can tell you how to get your children involved in the arts, because what we fail to realize, especially when our children are toddlers, is that they are so creative, and that's when their imagination is just blossoming and blooming. So it's critical that we make sure that we have children involved in our shows.
That's right, at an early age, because that's so important in their development, that you direct their energies in the right way, and arts is a great direction.
I remember a time when I was at Marissa visiting your house, and when I witnessed your nephew, who's a phenomenal dancer. I can't wait to see him on stage.
Yes, he is. He is quite the dancer, and it just came natural. And I think it's important, like you said, for parents to cultivate kids in different forms of art. There's some kids that love to read and love to express themselves, and so we have many poetry organizations in Baltimore and in the Washington metropolitan area. And there's one here in Baltimore called Poetry for the People that was taken from June Jordan's organization in California. And that's one organization that this community has access to.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we're going to take a break right now, and we'll be right back. Principal of Iona Concepts, a training and change management organization. Welcome again, Marissa. I wanted to ask you, what kind of consultations do you provide to nonprofit organizations?
Well, we do a lot of different things depending on where the nonprofit is and where the request is. For the most part, we do business planning, strategic marketing planning, and capacity building. Capacity building is a very important factor that is essential to the outcomes of a nonprofit organization. As I always say, nonprofit doesn't mean non-competitive, and we work we're existing in an environment now that there are many nonprofits that are in business charged to do the same kinds of things. And so we want to make sure that nonprofits are working in a way that they're both efficient and effective. And so in terms of capacity building, one of the things that we try to focus on is building the capacity of the staff to do what they do. And I always think about a proverb that said that you cannot see your reflection and running water. And so a lot of times we work with organizations through retreat kinds of settings. And so we bring organizational members together and board members together, especially, to talk about what are the goals of the organization. More importantly, what is the mission? Are our goals related to the mission? And are our goals SMART? And what SMART goals are, that means, are the goals specific? Are they measurable, achievable but aggressive, relevant, and are they time-bound? Because funders want to see that organizations are functioning from a planning base. As we all know, the old adage goes, fail to plan, plan to fail.
Okay. Now, we know that there are challenges that face nonprofits, and we would like you to tell us what kind of challenges are facing them in the economy that we're in today.
Many of the nonprofits that I work with today, they are funded and they're founded by passion. However, passion does not get the work done by itself. And so capacity is something that is very important. As a funder, funders are looking to see if a nonprofit has the capacity to accomplish the mission and the goals that it sets out to do. And so we try to develop the capacity, by training and or providing the organizational members as well as the board members with opportunities for training, as well as providing with resources where they can go for training. One of the things that I think that is very interesting that people do not understand about nonprofits is that the board is actually the governance of the organization. Although the executive director or the president of whatever the model that the nonprofit is using, that person is in charge of the organization, the daily business of the organization. The governance of the organization, the board of the organization is really is responsible for the outcomes of the organization and the management of the organization. That doesn't mean that the board is responsible for the day-to-day tasks of the organization and overseeing organizational members. What it means is that the board is fiscally responsible for the organization. The board is responsible for the perception of the organization in the community and the quality of work that's being provided in the community. The other thing is funding. Funding is, at the end of the day, that's what it's really all about. And, funders want to see that organizations have a diverse funding pool. They don't want to they don't want organizations to look for that one funding source as their primary funding. They have to have a diversity of funding. And so we look for opportunities for the organizations to do what we call resource development or fund development.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question for you. How long have you been doing Iona?
I've been doing Iona Concepts since 1993. I spent a lot of time, I think 9 years plus at the University of Maryland, College Park, working for the Center of Human Services Development. And I had an opportunity to do consultation and change management with many organizations. So Iona Concepts, we focus on organization, systems, and community change.
So if someone was interested in obtaining a nonprofit, what would be the first thing that they would do?
Well, the first thing that they would do is that they would really think about hard, about their commitment to making it work, because it's not easy, and that there is, as we know, in this post 9/11 especially, and looking at governmental resources drying up, there is limited funding that is out there for nonprofits, especially startups. And so, you want to make sure that you have the capacity, not only the financial capacity, but also the manpower to actually do it. And then one of the things that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to, apply for your 501c3 status. And that's a segment that we'll talk about in the upcoming segments of Etched in Stone.
Excellent. And we look so forward to Etched in Stone. Marissa, we'd like to thank you so much for being on the Talking Drum with Keepers of the Culture.
I'm excited to be here, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. And we'll be right back.
going into the break, Marissa was sharing with us about the waist beads, and she's going to give us some background on waist beads.
Well, I don't know that I know all of the background on waist beads, but I know that it was a sacred jewelry item in African culture, and it was, something that was seen by a woman's husband only. And so, as I call it, our sexy secrets that we have. However, because of the new fashion of midriff tops and hipster jeans, that we have modernized waist beads so that people can show them, and I design them in a way so that people can see them actually. And so you see a lot of the entertainers have waist beads on or waist chains on.
Okay. Okay.
Excellent. So what kind of stones do you use for your waist beads?
Well, I use different stones. Many of the women, as you know, live in their waist beads. And so I use stones that are not going to turn in terms of metals. I use pearls and I use semi-precious stones in the waist beads. And so the stones that I select are soft in nature so that they're comfortable while women are wearing them under their clothing.
Now, Marissa, it's interesting and really very fascinating to me that your last name is Stone and you work with stones.
Yes, I never really thought about that until someone said, was it a coincidence? And I said, no, none at all.
Really?
I'm affiliated with a nonprofit, and one of the things that came up recently was that they were trying to check on their status with the Internal Revenue, and what I found out for them is that it had expired. And there's certain things that they have to do to get it reinstituted, but how often do you run into those kind of things that it's expired?
Well, what we try to encourage organizations to make sure that their filing is up to date. Any nonprofit organization or person really can go to a website called GuideStar.com or GuideStar.org, and you can see what the status of a nonprofit is.
Oh, okay. So what are some of the things that you do with nonprofit boards?
One of the things that I work with boards with is self-assessments. Just like a nonprofit will, the executive committee of a nonprofit should be evaluating the performance of the executive director. A board should also evaluate their own performance. The other thing is that I try to work with boards with is recruitment of board members. Sometimes I work with boards and I find that sometimes people recruit people on their boards because they're friends. That's not necessarily a real strategic move. You really want to assess the goals and objectives of the organization and determine if a board member has the ability to bring something that will meet those goals and objectives. A board member's role is to be a resource allocator at the end of the day. They have fiduciary responsibility of the organization. So you want someone who is very serious about the task of being a board member. You want to make sure that that board member understands the board's articles of incorporation. You want to make sure they understand the bylaws and that the board follows those bylaws. And another thing that we do is that we not only work with the recruitment process, but we set up committees and we help boards work in a committee mode. Just because a board has a committee doesn't mean that that committee functions properly. And so one of the things that I always find absent with boards is that they fail to do team building and really understand the thinking styles of their colleagues, because we have different thinking styles of how we approach situations, and when we understand people's thinking styles, we can leverage those thinking styles to to build the capacity of the organization and the outcomes.
Okay, thank you.
We want to thank everybody for tuning in to us today to watch the Talking Drum. We have so much more to give you, and we want you to make sure that you stay tuned for another show of the Talking Drums with Keeper of the Culture, CHERYL Hinton, and
Deborah Pierce.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Marissa.
Oh, thank both of you. I've had such a wonderful time, and I look forward to coming back and providing the community with some more tips and strategies of how to run an effective and efficient nonprofit organization.
And you will be etched in stone. Thank you. Thank you so much.
We want to thank you for joining us on this episode of The Talking Drum. And we hope that you will join us again as we plan to have many more exciting episodes coming up. And we're coming to you from the beautiful mansion of the Great Blacks and Wax Museum. And to them we say Ashe, Ashe, Ashe.
Yo.
Cheryl, I am just so thrilled to be on this show with you. And Marilyn did a great job on your makeup, and I hope she can do that for me the next time. But how excited are you about our show?
I'm real excited about this. It's so surreal, and I know that we're going to do great things and have great guests as we did today. It was so nice to open up our show with Marissa Stone. She was powerful, wasn't she?
And very informative.
Exactly.
And very artistic, beautiful jewelry.
Real for real.
Beautiful jewelry. But I think it's a great opportunity to share the culture with folks here in Baltimore and surrounding areas, because people just don't know that stuff happens all year long culturally.
Exactly.
And that's our charge, to let them know that it's going on all the time.
I know, because girls, we are keeping so.
All right, no, that's right.
If you'd like to share with us on The Talking Drum how you are a keeper of the culture in art, music, storytelling, dance, or song, feel free to call us at this number.
410-732-4371.
And we'd like you to be a part of our show, The Talking Drum, with Keepers of the Culture
Deborah Pierce Fakunle
and Cheryl Hinton. Peace.
Southern trees bear a strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the roots, black bodies swinging in the summer breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees.